So this is my mind map and summary of the Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. So the first chapter in this book is the mastermind. And a mastermind is a mind that is developed through the harmonious cooperation by two or more people who ally themselves for the purpose of accomplishing any given task. This is just a side note really in this chapter, but Napoleon talks about weaknesses, so intolerance, cupidity, greed, jealousy, suspicion, revenge, egotism, conceit, the tendency to reap where they have not sown, and spending more than they earn. Then he talks about brainwaves, so he talks about atoms and vibrations and ether, and his view is that every mind is both a broadcasting and receiving station. And that's how you suddenly get thoughts popping into your mind. So he gives a bunch of examples of this concept. So love at first sight, instantly disliking someone who you've only just met, salesmen knowing when to close a sale, and lawyers knowing how to get to the truth. So spirit of harmony of purpose is necessary to achieve the mastermind. As soon as minds diverge, the mastermind dissolves. So methods leaders use are varied. They could use force or persuasion or fear of penalties or glory of rewards. Soldiers followed Napoleon to certain death, so he was a leader that could get his followers to be in perfect harmony with what he wanted. It fails if someone has an extremely negative or repellent mind, and then music can help to set the stage or set the mood for perfect harmony. And then Napoleon suggests the nagging wife slowly destroys the ambition of her husband. So with pet meetings, the purpose of the pet meeting is to create a mastermind, so all individuals can benefit from it. And then your mind is like a battery that regularly needs recharging. So great leaders know how to do this. This is the main feature that separates leaders from followers. So Ford, Edison, and Firestone, they were all close personal friends. They met for a common purpose. Then their minds became magnets for new ideas, and they were all highly sexed people. So in terms of speaking, every speaker knows that it takes 10 to 20 minutes of warming up the audience, getting them into a spirit of perfect harmony. The second chapter here, definite chief aim. So Napoleon's definition of power is organized energy or effort. Then he talks about Carnegie. He made a fortune from steel without any technical knowledge. He radiated confidence, and his outstanding quality was inspiring others. And he could have succeeded in any industry. So often with war, propaganda and sowing doubt into the enemy so that they become uncoordinated is the way that you disrupt the enemy. Otherwise, the enemy has great power if they're acting together in coordination. Napoleon gives this example here of 7 sons that were always quarreling, and what their dad did is they gave them each a stick and asked them to break the stick, which they did easily. Then he tied the 7 sticks together and then asked them to break them, and obviously they couldn't because it was too strong. So his advice there was when you work together, you like all these sticks, you're unbreakable. So Napoleon talks a lot about this concept of autosuggestion, and this is basically telling yourself what you want to achieve. So write out your definite chief aim and refer to it daily. And he talks about a talented writer and public speaker who each night he imagines sitting at a table with great people, e.g. Washington, and talking to them about attaining their characteristics. So in terms of a definite purpose, Napoleon suggests that he surveyed 16,000 people, and many answered along the lines of, my definite purpose is to be as much service to the world as possible and to earn a good living, which Napoleon suggests is not really a definite purpose at all. So the steps that need to be taken are, you need to decide what your major aim in life should be, write out a clear, concise statement of the same. You need to write out a statement of the plans you need to put in place to achieve the same, and then form an alliance with someone who will help you achieve the same and get them to affirm to you that you can achieve the same. The next chapter here is on self-confidence. So in terms of fear, you could be someone that tells yourself you can't do it, you're afraid to try, you're afraid of public opinion, you're afraid you'll fail, you're afraid you don't have the ability. So there's Napoleon quotes 6 fears. The fear of poverty. So this would be dominating your fellow man economically, the fear of old age, and this fear can be exasperated through religion, the fear of criticism, the fear of love of someone, the fear of ill health, and the fear of death. So social hereditary affairs, dogmas, or beliefs that are passed down from one generation to the next. So, Napoleon gives us example of his pet crow who suddenly met up with some other crows and then just flew away and never saw him again. A dog and a hen that were kind of, friends with each other, and then a mother hen came along and told the baby hen, you should be scared of this dog, and so the hen was, ran away and was never friends with the dog again. So it's the same kind of concept with these little chicks. So the idea here is if someone's ignoring you, then it's best to take a back seat. And if you've been brought up in poverty, then you should stay in poverty, and all these kind of ideas or fears that come about from social hereditary. So Napoleon suggests that struggle is really important in life. It's necessary to build self-confidence, and it's a blessing. He talks of 2 rich men's sons that were drunkards and achieved nothing because they never had to struggle. He talks about a young timid man who became the world's leading salesman, selling advertising space at a newspaper. And what this young man did is he chose the 12 hardest people to sell to, and he spent every day in the park saying that they would buy advertising from him, and he persisted for 30 days for the final account. So self-confidence formula is, I have the ability to achieve my definite purpose, and I'm going to demand of myself persistent, aggressive action until I achieve it. Concentrate for 30 minutes each day on the person I wish to become. Spend 10 minutes daily on developing the 16 laws of success. I've mapped out and written my definite chief purpose for the next 5 years, and my actions must benefit everyone. So he talks about the story of this tramp that came in to visit him, and this tramp had a little book that he had written on self-confidence, and he was like, I've come to see you because if there's any person in this world that can help me, it's you. And basically what Napoleon did is he took this guy and put him in front of the mirror, and then he pointed at his reflection in the mirror and said, "You're the only person. This person in the mirror is the only person in the world that can help themselves." And this person then went on to do extremely well in business, and he turned his life around. So Napoleon suggests that show yourself confidence by the service you render rather than through self-praise. So it's not about egotism. The next law here is about the habit of saving. So in terms of auto-suggestion, again, it starts with a chief aim and determination to achieve it, leads to self-confidence and increasing earning power. So include as part of your definite chief aim the habit of saving a regular proportion of your income, or use auto-suggestion to be trapped by the fear of poverty. So you can either use auto-suggestion to save money and become wealthy, or you can use it to suggest that you're always going to be in poverty. So fairly obvious, but avoid debt, quit buying on credit, and slowly pay off your debts. He gives lots of examples of people spending too much. So spending a large percentage of their salary on entertainment and booze. There's this great story in the book, I've Made $1 Million but haven't got a cent, by Mr. W.C. Freeman. Then he gives his own example of spending up to $94,000 on things that he really didn't need. And then he talks about Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, and these were, they all saved money regularly. So in terms of, you actually need the willpower to cut expenses, especially entertainment. Don't try and keep up with the Joneses, and keep a budget. He talks about lots of opportunities that have come up for people because they were in the habit of saving money. So he talked about someone who rescued the business he was working for with 900, and then he got a 50% share, and the business recovered and went on to make 25,000 per month. He talks about Ford and Woolworth, both borrowed money from friends, and their friends then earned hundreds of thousands of dollars back. Then he suggests that on the back of every great fortune is the habit of saving money, and he asks you the question: have you formed the habit of saving money? Next law he has about initiative and leadership. So what Napoleon talks about is on initiative is it's doing what ought to be done without being told to do it, and leadership is something you must invite yourself into. He gives some examples. So he gives his own example of starting an advertising and marketing school. He needed $25,000 to start the school. So he talks about how he took the initiative and the leadership in raising that money. And then he talks about a young lady doing admin in his office, and he dictated this creed to her about taking initiative, and she took it to heart. And she started doing more work and better work than she was paid for, and always taking the initiative, and almost writing letters and responses for Napoleon that were as good or better than he could write himself in his style. So she eventually ended up becoming his personal secretary and got many salary increases. So in terms of order suggestion, which is the theme of just about all of these laws, is I'll form the habit of taking some definite action each day that will carry me closer to achieving my chief aim. And then I'm going to do one thing each day without being told, finding something to do that you haven't been in the habit of doing that will help others without expectation of pay, and tell people about this habit. In terms of business failure, Napoleon suggests that most businesses fail because of a lack of cooperation. And he recommends this book, The Science of Power, by Benjamin Kidd. So Major Back, this is a speech on leadership, so you can do Google search for Major Back speech on leadership, and read and just go through the speech that he did. It's very revealing in terms of leadership skills. Decision making. So he tells a story of a real estate man that couldn't make a decision to buy a sales and marketing course, and basically the person that was selling him this course eventually kind of said to him, well, I wouldn't sell this course to you even if you wanted to buy it, because I can tell you the kind of person that just can't make up your mind and make a decision. So even if it's yes or no, and this so inspired this particular man that he moved into the city and became a very, very successful real estate man. So next law he has on imagination. So Napoleon suggests that every lesson is dependent on your imagination, because you can never have a definite purpose, you can never have good leadership skills, etc. if you don't create these qualities first in your imagination. In terms of control, imagination is the one thing you have complete control over that no one can take away from you. And then there's this poem by Abu Ben Adem by Lee Hunt, so that's something worth googling and checking out. He talks about Armistice Day, which is the day after the war, and millions of soldiers, or the day the war stopped, millions of soldiers stopped fighting. And then he woke up at 3 a.m. with thousands of others, all asking what had happened. So there's this idea that this thought wave just went sweeping across the world and woke people up at 3 a.m. Because of the euphoria. So examples of using people that have used their imagination, and Napoleon suggests it's rearranging old ideas into new. So Edison mixed electricity with a vacuum to get the light bulb. He talks about this person who there was mountains on one side and lowlands on the other, and what this person did is blew up the mountains, filled up the lowlands, and then had all this land to create very valuable real estate on. Another person took this old barn that was worth nothing and turned it into a very popular automobile shop. Talks about chemistry. Pig iron is pretty useless, but then you combine it with various other substances and it turns into steel, which is very valuable. So the Great Northern Railway System, which was basically inspired and thought through by James J. Hill, he was just earning $30 per month at the time, and so he came up with this whole system in his imagination. And then he gives us an example of how he got this person, and he just calls him B in the book, released from prison. And a lot of different people had tried, but basically what Napoleon did was combine what this person had already done, which was start a kind of study program, or like getting the prisoners' degrees within prison, and using what he had already done to get the authorities to suggest that he does this in all the prisons throughout America, and that's how he got released. In terms of salesmanship, you have to have the imagination to know the benefits of the product you're selling, and there's only one best approach to every problem. And he gives us an example of in his book of how he went to buy ties and shirts, and one of the salesmen in the shop came and showed off some ties and shirts that were definitely not his style, and then he went to another shop across the road, and he found the complete opposite, a salesman who sized them up and gave him displayed to him exactly what he would have wanted in the first place. The next law is on enthusiasm, and basically Napoleon suggests, which is fairly obvious really, is it's enthusiasm's easy when you're doing the job you like best, and so if you're not currently doing the work you enjoy, you can make a definite chief aim and plans to implement it. And he suggests here that happiness is the hope of future achievement. In terms of suggestion, how your words and acts and even state of mind influence others can only work when a person's mind is in a state of neutrality. So if you try and make a sale too early, for example, you'll come up with resistance. In terms of enthusiasm being contagious, when you're enthusiastic, your tone of voice conveys the meaning and emotion with your words. So there's three mediums in which you can display enthusiasm. So what you say, so your tone of your voice, what you do, i.e., are you trying to sell a Ford if you drive a Buick, and your thoughts, and the suggestion here is your thoughts dictate your words and actions. So in terms of salesmanship, Napoleon gives this example of someone who turned up at his office and said, "You wouldn't subscribe to the Post to help me out," and obviously he didn't help him out because that's not a great way to sell something. Versus this other person who came in and said, "Oh, I see you're a lover of books and magazines," and then started talking about his work, and then expertly towards the end of the conversation shift into selling the same sort of kind of magazines that this first person was trying to sell. But because of the different approach and the enthusiasm that went into it, Napoleon ended up buying what this person was selling. Then he talks a lot about the psychology of clothes, and he talks about Barnes, who was a very successful salesman for Edison, and he had 31 suits, one for every day of the month, whereas Napoleon suggests you have a suit for every day of the week. In terms of conscience, he suggests you should only write and say the things that you believe. Without belief, there can be no influence. So, and you cannot afford to suggest to another either by words or acts that which you do not believe. Your enthusiasm won't come through. And then conditions for enthusiasm: an occupation you enjoy, environment where others are enthusiastic and optimistic, financial success, mastery of the 16 laws of success, good health, serving in a helpful manner, and good clothes. The next law is the law of self-control. So Napoleon gives us this story of this janitor, and he didn't really like this janitor. They had a few fights, and what this janitor did the one day while he was in the office is just turn all the lights off. So he basically went down and he confronted this janitor, and they had a big, he screamed and shouted at the janitor, but the janitor remained completely calm. And so once he went off, he realized that he'd blown his cool, so he went back and he apologized to the janitor, who remained completely calm and said, not a problem, and I won't tell anyone about it. And after this, he resolved to never lose his cool again, and once he did that, he started to write and speak better. So he talks about this. He gives an example of this department store where it was the complaints desk, and people would come up, they would scream and shout and complain, and they actually used the deaf lady to handle all the complaints, and she would just smile politely and nod and answer the person politely, which usually led to them walking away quite sheepishly. But that was the way that, that they managed to handle the emotion of people getting upset. In terms of a salesman, you'll lose a sale if you react to something a prospective customer says you don't like. Master salesmen have the self-control to think his customer will say yes, and self-control to not hear no and persist until the customer says yes. Tammany Hall, this was a guy called Richard Cocker, who was the mayor, and basically what Napoleon describes here was that they were on a train or something, and a whole bunch of men were arguing about this, about Richard, and what he was doing and what he was doing wrong, and it was a very insightful a very bitter discussion. And what the person that was inciting this discussion was actually Richard himself. And so the thing Napoleon says here is men who control themselves usually lost the job. In terms of attributes of self-control, someone who has self-control will not be influenced by cynic or pessimist, won't permit another person to do his thinking, will never slander or seek revenge, won't form an opinion without facts, and is able to save money. So in terms of writing it out, there was this journalist who was criticizing Napoleon's work, and he wrote a biting reply, and this is what released all his anger and resentment. From then on, if he got angry, he wrote it out. So that's a good way to kind of help control your negative emotions and anger. In terms of thought, you have the power to control your thoughts and make them do your bidding. Self-control is really a matter of thought control. So deliberately place in your own mind the thoughts you desire there. In terms of intense anger, so the question here, how can you control yourself if you're intensely angry? And Napoleon's suggestion here is the same way you would if someone was to knock on the door, just a desire to control yourself. In terms of retaliation, he gives this example of his two boys, and they're both fighting. One had peanuts and one had Cracker Jacks, and the one boy tried to steal the other's peanuts. And what Napoleon did is he got one of his boys to offer the other some peanuts, and then as he did that, the other son offered his Cracker Jack. So it's the law of retaliation. So if you give, someone will want to give you back. The next law here is doing more. So doing the habit of doing more than you paid for. So in terms of loving your work, if you love your work, it's easy to do, and you can do more and better work without being fatigued. So every person owes it to themselves to find the work they like best. So in terms of obstacles, he suggests here sometimes your family and friends are the obstacle, and usually the obstacle is the work you like best is not the best remunerated. So the greatest obstacle in his own life was his wife, because she wanted him to get a salary position rather than work on the books and training that he did. The Law of Success philosophy, it took him many years to write with no reward. And he gave the speech to a business partner, Don Mellor, who owned the Canton Daily News, and he told the story, and he basically articulated that he was a failure. And Don said, no, you haven't failed, it's just temporary defeat. And once he started to sell this particular course, he started to gain a lot of success in sales. And then there's this concept of providing more service, perform more service and better service than that which you paid, and struggle and resistance develop strength. And then he says the mountain in the way of most people's success is the feeling that they've been cheated unless you receive material pay for the services you have rendered. And then he asked everyone to do an experiment, and that's for 6 months render service every day for which you expect no pay. And this is some research you can do. You can Google Emerson's essays on compensation. The next law is about pleasing personality, so taking a keen interest in another person's game in life. And he talks about this old lady who had a sweet smile, a magnetic handshake, and she walked into his office and basically looked him in the eye and said, I just came here to tell you you're doing the most magnificent work in the world. And she talked about his magazine, and then at the end she switched to sell him some securities. And Napoleon's suggestion here is we all vain. And then he talks about this green master salesman. So the star salesman tried to play a trick on this guy, and they sent him to an artist who they hadn't been able to sell. And he came back after selling this artist, and the trick that he used was just to pay interest in this artist's paintings and his work. But Napoleon says it's not cheap flattery, but genuine interest, something you admire about them. He talks about Mark Antony's speech, his famous speech to the Roman mob, and how he appealed to the mob's self-interest. So any salesman, writer, speaker needs to appeal to the audience's self-interest. He talks about developing character, so rigid self-discipline. Choose the character of those people you want to emulate, and through auto-suggestion, imagine that you take on those characteristics. Have a council table with the people seated around the table. Take a few minutes each day to meditate on the characteristics you want to acquire. Find someone each day who has a good quality and praise them. In terms of speaking, he suggests you work on your tone of voice to be rhythmical and pleasing to the ear. You must be able to speak with force and conviction. So the steps to developing a pleasing personality: habit of interesting yourself in other people, speak with force and conviction, dress well, use the formula on developing character, shake hands with warmth of feeling and enthusiasm, attract to others by attracting yourself to them, like attracts like. Your only limitation is the one you set up in your own mind. So the next law here is the law on accurate thought. So in terms of technique, you have to separate facts from information, as not all information is factual. Then you have to separate facts into important and non-important, or relevant, non-relevant. So facts are important if they help you achieve your definite chief aim. So in terms of hearsay, be careful of hearsay information, especially if it's of a destructive nature. In terms of creative thought, he talks about autosuggestion. So tell your subconscious mind your definite chief aim, and then that's like a link to infinite intelligence. And he suggests you refer to the lesson mastermind. So your subconscious mind acts on any input, so you have to be careful what you feed it. Your conscious mind is like the lens that lets light through to your subconscious. Then he talks about the power of autosuggestion. So he gives you examples of sick people being told they will recover. Someone who had this imaginary tumor that every time they went under, the tumor disappeared. He suggests you take this test. Say to yourself, "I'll wake up at 7 a.m. tomorrow," and your subconscious will wake you up. And then the suggestion here is the best to use autosuggestion in the evening, so your subconscious can work throughout the night. You must understand your mind can be controlled to constructive ends. Mind can be directed to destructive ends. Your mind has the power of every cell of the body. All achievement is the result of thought. All achievements are usually conceived in one man's mind, but transformed into reality by someone else. And the majority of thoughts are not accurate. And then some poems he suggests you look into are Thoughts of Things by Ella Wheeler Wilcox and Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Next law is law on concentration. So he talks about autosuggestion and habit. Concentration is the act of focusing the mind on a given desire until ways and means for its realization have been worked out and successfully put into operation. So what is autosuggestion and habit? Thinking the same thing over and over again. Habits can be mastered, harnessed, and put to work in our favor. So in terms of environment, you need to control the environment as best you can to help you achieve your definite chief aim. So you should read books that align with your definite chief aim, speak to people that will help you with your definite chief aim, and wear clothes that make you feel confident. So in terms of the pledge, with your definite chief aim, I'm going to concentrate for 10 minutes daily before bed and when I rise in the morning. In terms of your imagination, think 1, 2, 5, and 10 years from now. Example, see yourself as a great public speaker with a nice bank account, person of influence, etc. Ambition, desire, and concentrated effort. That's what you need. In terms of a hidden person is often behind every successful person is another person. With Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, it was their wife. So you need 2 or more people in a spirit of perfect harmony to achieve a definite chief aim. Dr. Elmer Gates, he was a leading psychologist and came up with a number of different inventions. So what he would do is, after reading all the relevant facts, he concentrated his mind on the subject and let ideas flow into him, which he wrote down. The next law is the law on cooperation. So in terms of your conscious and subconscious mind, you need a cooperation between subconscious and conscious mind through autosuggestion. And then example, telling yourself to wake up at a certain time. In industry, you need cooperation is the very foundation of successful leadership. In terms of power, personal power is mastering the faculties of your mind. Group power is cooperation of others. Great leaders were organizers and relied on others supplying knowledge and expertise they lacked. So in terms of organizations, you have buyers, salesmen, and finance, all quite different, but they all cooperate together. And then if you analyze power, no matter where or in what form, you'll find organization and cooperation as the chief factors behind it. In terms of action can take the form of a promoter or caretaker. You need both types for organized effort. So there's a habit of doing the most distasteful tasks first. Place a sign that says, "Do not tell them what you can do, show them." And every night say 12 times, "Tomorrow I shall do everything that should be done." And then music can stimulate action. And he gives this example of the Feline department store morning orchestra and how doing this gave them all a lot of enthusiasm for the whole day. In terms of the health plan, this is Napoleon's health plan. A hot cup of water in the morning before breakfast. Breakfast was rolls made of whole wheat and bran. Breakfast cereal, fruit and soft-boiled eggs. Once in a while, coffee. Lunch was vegetables with white bread and buttermilk. And supper was a steak once or twice, vegetables and coffee. So he used to walk 10 miles per day and meditate. And then he used to lie across a straight-bottomed chair flat on my back with most of my weight on my lower back with head and arms relaxed. And then you'd get an enema once every 10 days and a hot shower followed by a cold shower. In terms of mastermind, the motivating force has to be stronger than an individual's personal interests to create perfect harmony. So your motivating forces can be self-preservation, sex, financial and social power. The leader must seek a motive strong enough to ensure the followers full, undivided, unselfish cooperation. So in terms of failure, Napoleon suggests that there's no such thing as failure, it's only temporary defeat. And he gives us 6 experiences in his life. First one was a rapid promotion to general manager of a mine, and then the mine went bust. He was a sales manager and partner at a lumber mill, but that went bust in the 1907 panic. He studied law at night and had an automobile repair shop. He loaned more and more money from the bank, who eventually just took over the business. He was assistant to chief counsel at a coal mining company, and he quit because the job was too easy. And he moved to Chicago as an advertising manager for a large correspondence school. He started a candy business, but then his partners tried stealing his interest and getting him arrested. And he didn't actually take revenge at this time, which I'll refer to in law number 16. And then he started an advertising and salesmanship school, which he had to write everything off to go to the war. So he uses all these experiences, which could suggest he was a failure, but he uses them all as a way to suggest that his seventh turning point in his life was when he started this Hill's Golden Rule national magazine, and this was extremely successful, which is also behind 2 books that he wrote that were very successful. But what he had done in all of these turning points in his life is he performed more service than that for that which he was paid, but he hadn't yet found the work which he could throw his heart and soul into. So on Armistice Day in 1918, he was penniless after the war, and he wrote this story about a personal visit with your editor. This was like going to be the first story within his magazine, and he talked about how back when he was still young, he worked in the coal mines, and there was a workers' strike, and what happened was the workers agreed to carry on working, but they would get part of the profit from the mine if the mine became more productive. So and then they would receive this check every month, and on it was or on the envelope was written, "You're part of the profits from the work which you did that you were not paid to do." And then this is just a poem, "When Nature Wants a Man" by Angela Morgan, that I suggest you'll look up on Google. The 15th law here is the law on tolerance. So he gives this example of a young man that he just met, but while you're shaking this man's hand, he noticed this Knights of Columbus pin, and obviously there was a lot of prejudice against this particular school, I guess, and so he immediately stopped shaking the man's hand, and so this led him to a search of his hidden biases and prejudices, and he realized he was a staunch Democrat because his father was one, and then this led him down the thought path of many biases are due to how we are influenced in our childhood. So he gives us kind of long discussion on antidote to war, and he suggests that in Germany, the reason that the Germans went to war is because they were influenced by the church, clergy, and schools when they were young. So Germany in World War I completely influenced the young through schooling to subjugate self for state. In America, the ideal that everyone gets taught is about wealth and creating wealth. So the antidote to war would be to teach young people that war is horrible through parents, teachers, and religious leaders. In terms of business, he gives some examples of what you could do with this idea, and he gives an example of a bank which sends children a birthday present every year. And then the idea here is you attract the children, you attract the parents. And the final rule here is the golden rule. And so Napoleon suggests not only do unto others as you'd want them to do unto you, but also think of others as you wish them to think of you. He gives a story of an old man's prayer. So this lawyer would basically refuse the case because he overheard an old man begging God that his house wouldn't be taken from him. And then he gives this story about this golden rule judge. So there are 30 drunkards lining up for punishment, and then this opera singer started singing this beautiful hymn, which really impacted all of these men, and they all ended up, all 30 of them were all weeping. And then the judge let them off with no fine because he felt that was more than enough punishment. So Napoleon says, why does this course not have anything about honesty? And then his response is because the golden rule makes dishonesty impossible, as well as selfishness, greed, envy, bigotry, hatred, and malice. So what you do unto others, you effectively do unto yourself. So he had a choice to sue an offender and make a lot of money, or you could just forgive them. So and then he suggests, that not very many people can say the Lord's Prayer and actually mean it. And then he's got this code of ethics, which is never do unto another what I wouldn't want done in reverse. I'll be honest. I'll forgive those that are unjust towards me. I'll be generous and fair. I'll devote time to discovery of my own weaknesses rather than others. I'll slander no person. I'll not have destructive thoughts. I'll conquer selfishness, envy, jealousy, malice, pessimism, doubt, and fear. Fill my mind with thoughts of courage, self-confidence, and goodwill to others. I will be active in my application of the golden rule. Character is built through my own acts and thoughts, so I will guard these. And I'll do my best to assist others with opportunity affairs. So that's everything I have on my mind map of the law of success by